This second panel is moderated by Maria Luisa Escobar, the manager of the Health Systems Practice at the World Bank Institute. And the three panelists and the discussant will be covering ground on the governance and institutional dimensions, and also the rights-based dimensions on this contentious issue in Latin America, but also outside of Latin America. So, Maria Luisa, over to you.
Yes? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, we're going to do something a little different in this panel, and we have here three very interesting panelists that I will introduce in a moment. And as you know, we are going to look at three different dimensions of this multifaceted challenge. So we are going to be looking at the governance and institutional arrangements. We are going to be looking at the equity dimensions, and we are also going to see more on the role of the judicial in public policy. So we have here three panelists. We'll start with David Varela, who is sitting next to me, and he is the Senior Public Management Specialist at PREM, and he has studied for quite some time governance and institutional arrangements and the impact that it has over these issues. And I think he's going to exemplify with one of the countries his point. Please go ahead, and I will introduce the others as we go. Thanks.
Let me see here. Okay. Thank you. Well, we are having a great challenge, I would say, in terms of how to measure the institutional performance of the court system in terms of recognition and enforcement of labor and social security rights. We have to acknowledge up front that we haven't done any particular work on justice, on health rights as such. That would be probably our next step. But now we are working on the side of labor and social security rights that have a great interest for us. And we have selected the case of the administrative courts in Colombia, what they are doing in connection with these social security and labor rights. And we did a pilot study of these administrative courts. We have a main challenge to pose you, how to put justice in numbers. There are almost no statistical databases in these institutions in Latin America. Data is scarce, only about incoming and outgoing cases, and very few have detailed databases about what's going on in the courts. And if we are dealing with labor, social security, or health rights, we have to put numbers on that and know what we are talking about: people, money, who is who in the system, and this is information that would help inform public policy. Information about who is the plaintiff, who is the defendant, how long these judicial procedures take, which amounts are involved. That's one of the most challenging things in this area, to the extent that some claims that may be small in the beginning may be indexed and at the end are very large claims. And the case management systems that were the traditional solution to this problem have not proved really as an effective tool as originally envisaged. Then what we did in Colombia is to acknowledge up front the problem, try to help with the... Sorry.
The headset is working on channel 5. Are we all good? Cinco.
Okay, good. Well, we acknowledge up front these challenges and work with the Colombian judiciary to develop statistical information to inform public policies and favor this dialogue between the courts and the government that is always productive, and I think it's at the core of this workshop and the work WBI is doing. And we have worked both on civil and commercial courts for private sector development issues, but to look into some tax, contract, and labor issues and social security, we selected the administrative courts of Bogota in 2011. The objective was to track statistical disaggregated data to analyze how the cases move through the system and which are the main features, procedural milestones that influence the duration of court procedures. There is a sort of obsession, both on the side of users of the court system and also on the side of the providers of court services, about what's going on, who is responsible for the duration of these cases. Are the lawyers, are the judges, are court staff? Who is going to take responsibility for this, and how we can all together work to reduce delays that are the major cost of concern for citizens that are continuously complaining about these cases taking ages. Not the case of health rights protected by tutela in Colombia. I would say that tutela is a sort of island of excellence in the middle of a sea of inefficiency in court performance, and it has achieved a very high standing in the 20 years of existence of this institution, and for that reason is so popular. But still, tutela needs to be put in numbers. We have to know exactly who is who in the realm of tutela, who is getting what and for which reasons, and that's an research that probably we are going to continue, and I think Varun will tell us more about what he's planning to do in Colombia in connection with tutela, and then propose some changes about what we could do in the court system. The clients were the judiciary, the National Planning Department, and the Ministry of Justice and Rights. We had a sample of 2,000 cases to look at the three levels of the jurisdiction in Bogota, the juzgados, the tribunal, and the state council, the high administrative court, in order to see how cases move through the system up. And really, in Colombia, a number of institutions favor cases to stay in the system for a long time, because there is almost no res judicata. These cases continuously come in and out of the system and are reviewed for various reasons and may take a long time. Perhaps not so much the labor and social security cases. Contract and tax cases usually take more time, and tort cases, the ones that can come here to Washington to the Inter-American Human Rights system, may take even longer. What we found, really, that most cases at the trial level, the juzgados administrativos, are social and security and labor cases. These courts are being flooded by claims against social security institutions, CASUR, Caja de Sueldos de Retiro de la Policía, CREMIL from the military, Social Security Institute, and Cajanal for the public servants. All these cases are really clogging the administrative courts, which, by the way, were established only in 2008. And in just 4 years, they have been clogged by this type of cases. And most are routine pension claims, just people claiming a very clear right to receive a pension. And there is no real debate or discussion because there is evidence about the right. But these institutions are most likely underfunded and unable to cope with the number of claims they are receiving, and then they say, wait, let's try to manage cash flow by getting some sort of delay through the court system. The litigation practices of the public entities that are sued in these cases are not efficient, and it's clear they are trying to delay the case. And we cannot blame all delays on the courts because defendant is also helping. For instance, in this matter of responding to court writs to produce some documents, it's clear they are taking a very long time, in some cases more than 100 days. For very routine matters that could be even exchanged through email, had they been willing to do so in order to acknowledge the rights of these former employees that are claiming a pension or any other labor right. There is a specialized labor chamber that is supposed to deal with all these cases separate from tax cases or contract or tort cases. This labor chamber, Sección Segunda, in the juzgados or the tribunal or the high court, it has the heaviest workload at the trial level. It reduces as it comes up through the system. It is obvious that the most congested part of the system is now the base of the pyramid more than the upper levels in these matters of labor and social security. Most of the evidence to be debated in these cases is just documents, is whatever the entity has in their personnel file about the former employee. And in spite of that fact, it takes almost as long time sometimes to produce a document as to generate the witnesses or expert witnesses in a public hearing. We would have expected more efficiency in the exchange of documentary evidence for these cases to be adjudicated effectively. But the case, in fact, is that, for instance, at the level of the High Court, these cases, the production of documentation from the defendant is very, very slow and may take up to 200 days to receive the documents that have to be produced. The amounts of the claim are typically small at trial level. You will see that in the case of CREMIL, this Social Security Agency of the military forces, it's less than 30 million pesos, less than $20,000. But still, these cases may be indexed by the court system and they may grow in size. And what happened with appeals? Our system provides for a number of appeals up to the State Council. The reality seems to be that these appeals may take as long or even longer than the trial courts, and then we may get in twice the time because we are reviewing what the trial court was supposed to review first. If the bottlenecks could be removed, it would be just some willingness on the court side really to be more effective at certain stages, admission, notification, discovery, sentencing, through very simple administrative measures. For instance, this matter of notification. Is it so difficult to notify the chairman of a social security agency, who everyone knows him as a public official and everyone knows his office, he's not hiding from anyone, but it still takes a long time to notify this person. There is something wrong there that could be fixed easily. And similarly, the courts take a long time to review very routine matters. They get stuck in the docket and they don't move effectively. Even when those cases are copycat cases, most of them are very similar, the same facts, the same law, and could be processed in batches. I would stop here not to take more time from my colleagues, but as a conclusion of my view about performance in the court system, I think there is a lot of room for improvement. If we really want the courts to be effective, because that's the other question. Who is interested in the effectiveness of the courts? Does really society want that effectiveness? Do really lawyers want to cooperate in making the courts more effective? Or do the government agencies involved in these cases as defendant also are willing to cooperate for these cases to flow smoothly? Or is it a deliberate practice of managing cash flows through the court system, which has been detected not only in Colombia but also in Brazil and other countries as a typical practice of underfunded agencies? Those are all queries for public policy that I would pose, and if there is time in Q&A or an informal discussion, I will tell you more about what we plan to do at the national level, and not only for the courts in Bogota, to track all administrative cases at a higher level of detail. It's more than a pilot, it is a real census of the whole administrative court system in Colombia to measure performance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, for a very, very interesting presentation. I learned from your presentation, because we have been immersed in the health part, so we learned also that there are situations of asking the court to resolve problems of labor and social security. So asking the courts to enforce the implementation of social policies that have been put 10 years ago or more, in the case of my own country, in Colombia. I also learned that the data that is available is poor, or, I mean, it's flooded with data, but nobody has been able to put it together to study it and analyze it, and that's part of what you are doing. So it will help us to understand better who is claiming, who is getting, who is not getting, and so on. There's some of that, I understand, in the case of Brazil that has been done, and that we need to learn more to understand the equity dimensions of this issue. And you also ask a question that we'll go into later into Varun's presentation. Do we like to have the courts playing a very strong role in implementing and deciding public policy?